Mike McCool here in the Royal Examiner studio, and with me today is James Bergita. Should we call you Dr. Bergita? We're not in an education.
James is good. James is great. You know, my students, yes, but not outside of that, no.
Yeah, I read somewhere James has his PhD here, and I read no educator's only supposed to use doctor in the education setting, so we'll limit it to that.
That works for me.
You know, it's funny, but James is running for the Virginia Senate in our new District 1. And so congratulations.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that we're having a lot of, I'll consider you a young person. I know you're not that young, but much younger than I am. So, you know, you're always younger. But, you know, it's good to see some fresh blood getting into our political system. There's hope for us, I think. So I'll do what I ask everyone. Why in the world do you want to get into politics and get into this Virginia race?
Right. Yeah. For me, it's a story. It's kind of a slow progression. So my grandfather was really interested in politics, and he would listen to conservative talk radio, and I would hear it with him, but I didn't understand any of it. Yeah. But it made me realize this is something important. So that kind of always stayed there. And then, you know, watching the election returns with my dad, I remember, you know, when Gilmore ran and it says no car tax. And that really, that slogan stuck with me.
We still have it.
And we still have it. So look at that. Yeah. So that was the seed that was planted. And then, you know, in college, I got involved with college Republicans, you know, helped start the Young Republicans here in Warren County. Right. And it was really 2019 really lit the fire for me. So that year, we lost the General Assembly. The Republicans lost the General Assembly. And I had been helping out a congressional candidate. And I remember that day saying, we might lose Virginia. We might have very radical changes to Virginia. So that was a wake-up call for me. And, you know, I was in grad school at the time, finishing up. And I said, you know, I need to go back home and I need to help, you know, especially for this governor's race. We need to actually win the governor's mansion. Mm-hmm. So I got involved with that, got recruited onto the Youngkin campaign. They sent me down to the city of Chesapeake. They said, we have to win this city, James. And I'm like, I don't want to leave the valley. But so I went down there.
The battlegrounds are at
exactly. And so it's like, okay, it's for the state. I know, and I love our state. So I went down there. We were able to flip the city of Chesapeake. You know, we yielded about 5,000 votes out of there. And so it was an important moment for us.
Right.
And at that point, we had the redistricting that took place. And so the northern Shenandoah Valley became one district. They wanted to keep communities together.
Yeah.
And I looked at it and I was like, this is great. We, Winchester, Woodstock, Berryville, we're all now in one district.
That's I like that redistricting.
So good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a big thing for me because I said our community is now going to be represented, but I also looked, it's growing so fast.
Yeah.
It's growing so fast. We could become the next Loudon, you know, ideologically and otherwise.
Don't say that.
Well, my sort of one of my slogans for my campaign is don't Loudon our valley.
There you go.
And so, but I know that growth is coming, so we need to be intentional about it, preserve what we love about our community, but also have opportunities for the next generation.
Right.
So that's sort of, I was like, you know, I grew up here. This is something I can bring to the table.
Right.
And so when I saw the new map, I was like, okay, this is a way I can contribute to our community. So that was a big sort of launching path for me to say, you know, it was bit by bit. I got sort of pulled into it, you know, first trying to help at the state level and now saying, okay, this is a way I can serve our community. Yeah. And it's a team sport.
Sure.
You know, politics is a team sport in my view. You need to help, you know, our mayor here, our town council, and supervisors, and all around the area. And that's something I've been doing. I've been working with these local elected officials. I serve on our Finance and Audit Committee here in Warren, as well as on one of our subcommittees for transportation. So I really want to plug in, work with those here on the ground, and then sort of be the voice of the people, but also the voice of our electeds in Richmond.
Right. So, what's your day one event?
What's my day one event?
Have you planned that out?
Oh, so like when I arrive?
When you get down to in Virginia in the house, what are you going to do there in Richmond?
Right. So I've thought about sort of the overarching themes. You know, something I was told once, and I think it's really true, and it's kind of like with business. As a legislator, you do need to sort of do some specialization. You need to focus if you actually want to get something done.
Exactly.
And, you know, I could, there's better ways to use my time than, you know, if I go down there and just, you know, voice opinions and such. I actually want to get things done for the people here. So some of the big areas for me, as you know, my logo has a torch on it.
Right.
And so I see it, as picking up the torch, and for a new generation of leadership, but I'm an educator as well. So education is a big thing for me. I teach at Christendom College. So education is going to be one of my themes. So that's going to involve a number of things. One is we are having a hard time retaining teachers here in the Valley. So I want to try to make a much more level playing field for our teachers so we get the best education available to our kids here in the Valley. Also, I want to have school choice. So make sure that, if for instance, our public schools aren't the best option for a family, that they have the resources to go elsewhere. So I think that's really an important thing. And even if we don't get the perfect option right away, that's something I think we can work bit by bit to get something that's always better, and work with the communities.
Continual improvement. Isn't that
continual improvement. It's like it's true for life, and it should be true for politics.
We're
right?
a lifelong learner.
We're lifelong learners. Yes, indeed. So that for me is something, wanting to improve that. There's a lot of behavioral issues going on in schools right now, and so making sure that we can help localities address those. So that's the education front.
Right.
So that's a torch is a symbol for education. Sure. So that's one area for me. It's also though a symbol of freedom. So I want to make sure we protect all of our constitutional rights. That's very important to me, including our right to life. After the overturning of Roe v. Wade, that's gone to the states. So it's not just about abortion, but it's also about a whole lifelong approach of protecting life, and also making it easier. A lot of women are in very difficult situations when they've conceived, perhaps it wasn't their intention, and making sure that they have options so that it's easier than it is now if they want to put their kid up for adoption. So I think we have to take a sort of a very broad approach to this issue and be a pro-life, pro-family approach. So that would be my second sort of area of approach, is defending our rights. And then finally, it's about hope. It's a symbol of hope. And there's a lot of darkness in the world right now. And locally and nationally, we have a huge mental health and drug crisis. And that's something we need to address. It's something I was excited when Judge Funk here, made that one of his focuses of his judgeship. And so that's something I want to address for us, because we have one of the highest overdose rates in the state. And we need to address this, because it's leaving these gaping holes in families. It's often easier to get a fix than to get a bed. And that needs to change.
Right. Yeah, mental health kind of disappeared back in the 80s. I always blame it on the ACLU, and they're right. I mean, people do have rights. And we thought we were doing a good thing by hospitalizing the mental problems that we had, and maybe not really addressing them. But it really created in my humble opinion, our homeless situation seemed to appear overnight,
Right.
And it's not got any better.
And I've talked to people about this, and they're like, we don't really actually have a homelessness crisis. We have a mental health crisis.
Right, and then they're trying to get our law enforcement officers to be mental health officers, and we're engaging in those things. So it's a bigger picture than what we realize.
Right.
That's what we realize. Is there anything that's been going on with our previous administrations that you feel like needs to have some change, other than we want to lean towards more conservatism?
Yeah, one big thing I think we need to change, and I think we saw this during the COVID pandemic, is there's so much centralized control in Virginia, and it often takes away powers from those who are locally. Most of us don't have the time to go to Richmond and petition our legislators, but we can go and we know who our mayor is, we know who our supervisors are, we can knock on their door, we can call them up.
Right.
And so for me, it's saying, can we actually make decision making more local?
Right.
And so that's a big area for me. So locally, something I hear about all the time are the trains.
Yeah, the train. Well, people call us up and they say, well, how come we can't do this and how come we can't do that? And a lot of people say people don't realize that a lot of these issues, because of our Dillon rule that we have, the state doesn't give the towns or cities rights to do certain things.
Right.
And maybe that's part of this, moving things back to a little.
Yeah.
That we did that to protect you, but maybe those eras have changed. Maybe we don't need that protection any longer. We're big boys now.
It is a different era, and I think we need to re-examine. So the Dillon rule says basically, if the state doesn't say that you have that authority, you don't have that authority. Right. So I think we need to make sure there's more of that here. So with the trains, for instance, I've talked to local law enforcement. Right. They're like, if it's blocking Shenandoah Shores Road or Rockland Road, we can't do anything about it.
That's right.
But if you or I are walking on the train tracks, they can come right in and grab us off. So I think we do.
That's right. We were doing a story with the sheriff, and next thing you know, we got this email: "Stay off our property."
Right. Right. And so I think that's something we need to actually address. That we actually can have that local control. We've had 2 derailments in Warren County over the last 3 years.
Right.
So this is a real concern, especially after what happened in East Palestine. And I think we need to make sure that we have that decision making can happen here. And so I'm dedicated to looking at where does it make sense for that local decision making, because you'll look every year in the General Assembly, there's all sorts of little tweaks going on. People, they want to replace somebody in some locality, and that's being decided by legislators miles and miles away, where I think that sort of decision making should happen nearest the people as possible.
Sure, yeah, they always say all politics are local.
And they should be.
Yeah. If you go back to that train, we don't realize, too, is how many treaties and arrangements that's gone back from the 1800s that we're still being controlled by.
We're still being controlled by,
The frontier has been settled. Maybe the trains don't need quite as much, then that's a sore issue. But, they're a vital part of our country. They do move it, but now we have the new highway. We have the what do you call it? The cowboys of today are our truckers, and that brings up I-81, I-66.
Yeah. We have, the Virginia's inland port is here in the district. Right. So transportation.
I think it's underappreciated.
Exactly. And logistics, we're at sort of a hub for that. We have 2 of the state's interstates coming through this district. So we need to address what's going on in 81. Right. Every time I go on it, I'm like, why am I doing this? And it's amazing how many folks I talk to. And this is maybe their number 1 issue is I-81. So that's something that needs to be addressed, because and I think it's great. It's great that we are this logistics hub, but we need to make sure that it works for the communities that live here.
Right. We've been talking about having a second interchange for the town in various locations.
Right.
VDOT. And I said, you got to handle this politically. I said, I always think VDOT will do what they're told.
Right.
That's a general statement. But the idea is, if we don't learn how to use our political force, we're not going to get anywhere. And that's where I think people like yourself and others that are, now that we have a person that these districts, even our delegates, going to be more local.
Yeah, and
it's great to have 3 delegates, but like I said, it's like having no delegates, because there's not any one section. They can make Warren County mad, and they can still get elected. So with one, they're going to have to represent the whole county, and I think our delegate will be better. The senator's definitely an improvement. It's more located towards our area. Like you said, we have Shenandoah County, Warren County, Clarke County, Frederick County, and the City of Winchester. Is that correct? Right,
that's correct.
So, and Mark Obushane's done a great job.
Yeah.
But, it's funny, those districts south of us are different than where we're at.
I think we have more in common with Winchester, Berryville, Woodstock than we do with Harrisonburg. Right. And I think that's important to keep in mind.
Right.
It's actually working together for common interests. Right. So I think we're fortunate.
I mentioned this before to some people about, you go to Winchester, all their offices and state offices are in Northern Virginia. In Front Royal, all our contacts are in Richmond. Isn't that funny? We're only 20 miles apart, but yet we identify with south, and Winchester identifies east. So it's just it's like New York City and Puerto Rico is in New York, not in Miami.
No, exactly. And I think hopefully with this new realignment, we'll see more of local things being treated locally, and that's exciting for me.
Yeah. So we have this great location, and I always say is we're getting a lot of things are moving to Winchester, and I'm looking at these things and I'm thinking they could easily come to Front Royal. what's missing, and why aren't we having the political clout? Of course, maybe some of our senators have been a little more aggressive in that district. But you're right, a lot of our federal levels have moved to the Winchester area, and we're not getting anything in Warren County. Housing, where I sent a note to them, to the mayor and the supervisor, board of chairman, about the Virginia had $93 million for housing. I said, I didn't see Warren County on that list.
Right.
That was on my only comment, and I got back some nice response. We're going to check into that and see why. But if you don't ask, you're not going to get it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I want to be an energetic advocate, for our localities, because this is home at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I want it to be a great place to live. And you need to have opportunities. You need to be able to have a strong community. And that's something I think we need to do. And I think coming from this place, I've seen, I worked on a farm for a couple of years up in Clarke County. So I see what, Clarke looks like.
Sure.
I did my first year of my undergrad up at Shenandoah University. So I see, Winchester, you're right, you're getting a lot. And I love, Front Royal, Warren County, and I have a lot of good friends over in Shenandoah as well. So making sure we have the right opportunities are being brought and that we get those opportunities, because I think we've been left out a bit.
Well, in each of those areas, you mentioned Clarke County, they're all a little different.
They are.
They have a common,
you want to know the nuances of each, but I think we have, we're a larger, greater community, which is great. But each of the little communities inside of that one community have their own little differences and nuances, and I want to appreciate those and represent those.
I think people don't realize, too, how much, even at the state level, we know about our congressmen, and they do a lot. If you ask, they'll do stuff for you.
Right.
And I think we should, and so is I remember, contacting Mark Obeshane about things, and, he'll slip in there and see what he can do, and that's important, I think. And I don't think the public realizes how much our elected officials can really do for us, even in a local, small area.
Yeah, and that for me has been the great thing. We are running a very grassroots campaign. We're knocking on a lot of a door, and be knocking on a lot of doors. I've knocked on a lot of doors for our local candidates, and that's something I intend to continue doing. So even years I'm not running, because it's a 4-year post, but in between is knocking with our local candidates, so I have people can access me, because some people aren't going to even pick up the phone, and so it's like oh, the senator's at our front door. This is something that's been on my mind.
Come on in here, I want to tell you.
Yeah, and I want to tell you this has been on my mind, and that's the kind of my approach to it. This is about our friends and neighbors being represented, and I have to be with them to actually know what we want as a community. So that's something, it's a difference of approach.
Sure.
And you're right. I think we should be, this is a post where it is a number of counties, but you're still relatively close to your senator.
Sure.
I mean, if you need my number, you have it already, but people can get me on my number, which is 540-686-1520. Give me a call. Call me. I may not answer right away, but I'll try to get back to you and let me know what's on your mind. It's great.
That's great. Well, James, I think you've bitten off a big chunk of the chew, but that's good. And I think, there's a great opportunity. We're going to have a primary.
We are.
When is that?
So it's June 20th. And then early voting starts on May 5th here in Warren County.
Isn't that crazy?
It's it's election season, but we encourage people to participate. Often they don't in these off-year elections, but it's important to participate, get your voice heard, and send somebody there who really cares about this community and wants to advocate on our behalf and get something done.
Okay, appreciate it, James. We're going to put all the information, how you can find out more information about James. We'll put the link to his website and everything below the story. Check it out. And like I said, we had Lance Allen in last week or so, and you can check out his. There's several. We have quite a few running.
We got quite a few. It's everyone and their brother.
They all have this idea. It's kind of a new thing. Yeah. And what I say, throw it against the wall and see what sticks.
Right.
But it'll be an important race, so become informed. Like old what's his name down there? An informed educator. Informed in whatever it was. But you got to get informed.
We do, yes, agreed.
I'm trying to think what he used to say. I used to listen to his old commercials down in the city. He would always say, "Oh, if you're informed, you're a better biter buyer." So anyway, it's great.
Excellent.
But I appreciate you coming
thank you
in.
For having me on.
It's been so good to see you, and I'm. You're born. I don't want to say born and bred here, but you're
raised right here in the valley, and I love this place.
I know, your family, and it's great. You've always been active in the community, and I really appreciate all the things you've done, and I know there'll be big things ahead for you.
Appreciate it, Mike.
Thanks, James.
Take care.